Frank Peppiatt and John Aylesworth. During the past 15 years, they created or wrote the following TV shows. After Hours, Big Review, On Stage, The Andy Williams Show, Front Page Challenge, Music 60, Here's Duffy, The Perry Como Show, Cross Canada Hit Parade, The Barris Beat, The Steve Lawrence Edie Gourmet Show, Come Fly With Me, TV Guide Awards, Music Makers, Showtime, and specials for Judy Garland, Dean Martin, Maurice Chevalier, Juliet.
And one of the most prophetic specials we did was the Bing Crosby special, and his guest was Perry Como. And so we flew down to L.A. and did that show, and that's where he met Perry, and Perry said, would you come and do our show next year? One week you'd have Ethel Merman, the next week you'd have Jimmy Durante and Bob Hope and with Louis Armstrong, all these wonderful people, and our regulars on the show were Don Adams and Paul Lynde and Kay Ballard and Jack Duffy, as a matter of fact, from Toronto. It was fun to write for all those people.
Say hello, Perry, please.
Hello, Perry, please.
Tell Perry what you think of him.
Well, say, I think you got a swell show, but I don't think much of your singing.
The first 13 weeks of Judy Garland was done by some people, and she was very unhappy.
The first 5 weeks, really.
Yeah, that's right. And then they called us in New York and asked us to come out and save the show, which we didn't do.
It's hard to save a show when the star won't get them on the stage to do it.
She had never done weekly television, and people who haven't done weekly television, I mean, they finish a big show, and you phone them the next day and say, hey, let's talk about next week, and they get very upset. We played her and Mel Torme, who was the musical director, a tape of Rich Little, and they said, wow, this guy's wonderful. So he was living in Ottawa, right?
Yeah.
And I phoned him and said, and Rich said, well, talk to my manager, Gib Kerr. And I said, Gib, they want Rich on the we want Rich on the Judy Garland show on CBS, the full network.
And Gib said, gee, I'm sorry, but Rich has got a date in Brockville that night at the Chamber of Commerce. You know, a $30 gig, and I don't think we can get out of it. I'm in the background going, you idiot! The Judy Garland show! Are you crazy?
Well, the road gets rougher, gets lonelier and tougher. Oh, don't crowd me. With hope you burn up, tomorrow he may turn up.
Alfred Hitchcock.
There's just no let-up. They live long night or day.
Walter Brennan.
Ever since the world began, there's nothing shattered there. One man, woman. They're looking for the man that got away.
So they were always coming up with ideas, and that's what it's all about today. It isn't enough really to do just the impressions. You've got to have a hook to do them. You've got to have a routine to put these voices in. And that's what they were good at. They were always great at coming up with fresh ideas.
Dwight Hemian, a friend of ours, was hired to produce and direct Sinatra's first special based on his album, A Man and His Music. So they called it A Man and His Music, and Dwight wanted us to do it, and Sinatra agreed, so we got time off from Honolulu and flew out to Los Angeles. And that show won the Emmy for the Best Musical Show of the Year. He had a thing called, It Was a Very Good Year, one song. When I was 17, it was a very good year. When I was 21, when I was 35, when I was 40.
It was a big hit that year.
So we took each segment and put songs in that reflected that age.
The young Sinatra,
his
the middle
hits,
age.
you know,
yeah.
And we changed the set from summer, winter, spring, and fall.
But one of the reasons that we did well in the States was partly, or mostly, maybe, because of what we learned here. Yeah. We could literally do everything. We came up with what the sets were, the idea for the dance numbers, the special material, and the whole form of the show, the format, and all that stuff, which is very few people did that, so we were very lucky to have learned how to do it all.
I mean, if it wasn't for Frank and John, I don't know whether I would have really made it. Well, I might have, but, I mean, they really discovered me in a way. And so I think of them when I miss a plane or a show goes bad. I blame them. Otherwise, I could have just, you know, stayed in Ottawa and become an aluminum siding salesman.
And it's from the Lovin' Spoonful. It's their new record. If you'll come with me, I think we can find it back here. Come on.
1965, we were doing Hullabaloo in New York, and we did around 40, 42 Hullabaloo.
Well, it's all gone. It's all gone now. There is very little variety in television. It went through the 60s, and there were all the great variety shows from Milton Berle and Jackie Gleason, and the sketches and show of shows and all of that. And then about the end of the 70s, I think it just sort of...
Situation comedies took over.
Yeah, situation comedies took over in the 70s, and then you did Hee Haw for years.
Yeah. How did you get into Hee Haw? I mean, how did that begin?
We saw a Newsweek magazine. We were going to lunch, and it was on a newsstand, and Loretta Lynn was there, and the front cover, the headline was, "Country Music Hot." So we said, well, gee, that's it. So when we got back to the office, we looked up the rating. Top 10 was all country sitcoms. Beverly Hillbillies, Green Acres, all these things. So we figured, wait a minute, there's never been a country western comedy variety show. We'll put the two together.
Well, it's been on 23 years, 600 one-hour shows.
Yeah.
And we owned it, yeah.
Welcome to Hee Haw, starring Buck Owens and Roy Clark.
Don Herron was the first fellow we thought of in doing a country show, because, as I say, we didn't know anything about country. So we brought John down to be Charlie Farquharson in your KORN News.
And Gordy Tapp we brought down as well.
And we really needed Gordy because he knew the few comedians that existed in Nashville.
In that first year, it did so much for country music that on the Country Music Awards that year, John and I won the award for Country Music Men of the Year. We still have the awards at home.
Yeah. Often, when we were really busy writing a lot of shows later on in our career, Frank would write the first half and I'd write the second half. We fit them together and there was hardly any difference.
Right.
Because we were that simpatico in our thinking, so it made it very easy.
If you think alike, you know, you think funny the same sort of way, and you can and develop things rather than saying, you know, oh no, that isn't funny, I don't think that's funny, and the other guy, and then you say something, the other guy says, I don't think that's funny.
Yeah, that's not a team.
You're in a lot of trouble.
It's two guys fighting.
You're in a lot of trouble.
That's a writer and a producer.
Yeah.
But a couple of guys writing together, they have to have the same vision in order to make it all work, and it has to be your own vision and what you want to do, so you have to agree on the kind of cause. Sure, we would argue about particular punchline, but it would always be for the same end, the same
You're building on the idea all the time.
We never had any particular style of comedy that we did. Basically, before we got an audience in the very beginning and after hours, we just did what amused us, hoping it would amuse other people. Then when we started to get an audience in after a couple of months, we began to realize what made other people laugh, and also we enjoyed it too. But there was no particular style. It was just comedy is something that makes people laugh, and if it made them laugh, it made us happy.
A tinkling piano in the next apartment. Those stumbling words that told you what my heart meant.
At that time, the CBC was so small, and everybody kind of knew everybody, and it was a great pleasure. It was just a great pleasure, and it was fun to work with the two of you. I mean, I used to look forward to coming to the rehearsals because I never knew what was going to happen. And so it was a great period, you know. I guess I'd like to do it again.
When you did that to me, I knew somehow it had to be.
When I think of John and Frank, I smile because they brought so much laughter and life into my work as a director at the CBC. And I think they were impudent. They would attack anything. They were full of satire. at a time when people were afraid, and I think we were all young and innocent, and that's the best part of it.
It sure is.
Yeah.
When the subway comes, it'll take all the fun out of streetcar. No more jolts. No more streets to call out badly. No more cars to hit. No more doors to close. But subwaying's for younger men. I guess I'll be heading for the barn. Don't pity me, son. Don't pity me because I've had a good life on the rails. Had a good life. And pretty soon, I'll be heading for that big car barn up in the sky.
You shouldn't act like that. Now, I bought one of those old cars, you know.
You bought one of them?
Yes, I'm living in it.
Why don't we go and take the streetcar to your streetcar home?
That's great.
Wonderful.
We can sit around all day and yell out a medley of streets.
Oh, gosh, it'll be just like the old days.
Just like the old days.
College Street, Bloor Street.
Just a minute. No, you're saying it too clear. You didn't remember what I taught you.
Oops. Rara Street, Bridget Street.
That's better. Don't go.
Regular.
You're
next.
Nah, you got it. Now you got it.
Hey, let's go.
Coming to rehearsal, being in the studio, being on the air, it was the most exciting period I've ever known.
We had the same whimsy, I guess you could call it. We enjoyed the same things, we laughed at the same things, and it just went on from there.